or in panels like this, educational situations, that kind of thing. So one suggestion, and then a follow-up question on sort of on the same theme. I wonder if you all have thoughts about some of the topics that might have been missed by the slightly lopsided representation here. If there are specific issues that if you stopped and thought, okay, if we had included women, what might have been different? If you have ideas about what might have been included.
Do I have to answer this?
You're the Renaissance man.
Awesome. Every single CAP panel I do, they always give me the toughest questions. I believe you touched on a good, any panel on Islamophobia, Muslims, Islam, within 1 hour can in no way tackle the gamut of problems that exist within this community, okay? So in a sense, the deck's stacked against us. If it was all women panel, if it was half panel. Second point, I agree with you that we should have more diverse representation, but I think this panel came together like at the last second we put together, and I think it was just like we got it together, but that's not an excuse. Within Muslim American communities, there's an ongoing conversation, an emerging conversation and an emerging debate within the generation that says, you know what, why are the Muslims always behind the wall? Why are the Muslims who wear the hijab not in front of the TV? Who wouldn't want to see, would you guys be offended by seeing a news anchor on TV who is a woman who wears hijab? Awesome. No one answers, no one says anything. Great, very safe. No one, right? I mean, but where are they? Where are they? And I have friends, I was just in New York, we did an NBC tour, and my friend who was there, he says, there are so many obstacles to Muslim women who wear the hijab, who are so talented, so intelligent. They're in the back room, in the producer's room, but they can't get on air because the hijab is politicized, right? So there is this barrier that exists even within America, but within Muslim communities, this is an ongoing debate now. We need more visibility of Muslim women, educated Muslim women who are both hijabi and non-hijabi. Now the question also goes, is some organizations, some groups, wherever you are, they go, if you have a Muslim woman representative, she has to wear hijab. Even if she doesn't wear hijab in real life, when she comes and gives a panel, she has to wear hijab. How come she's not wearing hijab? And you're like, well, she doesn't wear hijab in real life, and a lot of Muslim women don't wear hijab. I'm just going to the politics of this is so deep. Do I think the questions would they have been different? I think if you had put a Muslim American female representative on here, I think she would have been able to tackle the same questions. And would she have been able to say something differently? We should ask some of the Muslim women on the panel.
I think if this last election cycle taught us, there's a lot of, the Muslim American issue kicks up a lot of dust and is used very much as a hot potato. And so sort of on a, from your own spheres and business, and then sort of largely, what are you going to be doing? What do you recommend the communities do? And what do you frankly recommend the parties do to prepare for this issue? And I'm just on the woman issue. I am a Muslim woman, and I just want to say I think you did a great job. I'm not going to get into this too much, but in terms of just representational, I have a much younger sister, and we talk a lot about this issue of hijab and covering and everything. And we were at Sephora, and there was a lovely woman in hijab who was a makeup artist and was doing makeup for all of the women that came through over the Christmas holiday. And it was maybe one of the neatest, best forms of America I have ever seen, where people she was just, this woman and was doing everyone's makeup, and it was very representational. So this is totally random note, but just on the Muslim, I think I would have added some anecdotes like that.
So in the elections, you're right. Muslim baiting has proven to be a successful strategy for at least one side of the political fence. I'm not particularly partisan, only because I don't, quite frankly, test Democrats either. I mean, you can trust them as far as you can throw them. Democrats sell out to the corporate industrial, be it the military industrial or the intelligence industrial establishment at the drop of a hat. So I don't think we actually have a political party in the United States that's actually prepared to defend the Constitution. None of them will. It's striking to me that a populist party from the right wing claims to, while seeming to demonstrate very little understanding of it. So that's kind of where we're at. But I do think in terms of strategies, to me the strategy is to not pay too much attention to elections and to carve out our own political space. Grassroots organizing and activism has always defined the spectrum of the debate. And if we concede the political space to the parties, you know, we might as well just jump off cliffs like the lemmings we ultimately, you know, will be. But if we organize, and I think there are lots of opportunities to organize across communities around shared agendas, be those public health agendas, be those worker rights agendas, be those civil rights agendas. You know, the work that my organization does is in civil rights campaigns at the local level that tie together Latino, white, civil libertarian, African American, and Muslim, Arab, and South Asian interests. And there's a huge opportunity in doing that work to tie together communities at the local level. And I'm going to put a pointed question to you. You know, I referenced Germany in the 1930s earlier. Let's just, you know, jump forward to the nightmare scenario. Let's just say it gets so bad, right, that it's like human rights abuses that are pervasive. Do you even know the Muslim Americans in your community to whom you would stand in solidarity? I'm sure most of you who are not, you know, feel solidarity with our communities, but do you have the networks in place where you would even know where and who those people are, right? And the only way for that to happen is for us to organize. And we can organize, again, about anything. It can be around the Boy Scouts. It can be around plays. It can be around arts and culture. You know, I do like spoken word stuff. There's all kinds of different ways to tie people together, but it is absolutely incumbent that we do all of them. And we need to go into overdrive because the alternative, that is civil society, right? When we reach out across communities to organize around shared interests. The alternative is not only letting democracy die in the face of a growing police state, but it's to abdicate it, right? Democracy is not something that just exists. We have to create it in every generation. We have to actively create it. And that takes associating, exercising the rights that we claim to be so fond of. And so I think, you know, the key in the next election cycle is to not defer to it too much and to set our own discourse and to be assertive in reaching out across communities around shared interests and being very visible.
I think the little bit that I would add to that is that if you go back to the 2000 election, there was a large number of Muslims who voted with the Republican Party. And then that obviously started to change immediately after 2001. So speaking as a community organizer, we need to remember that we cannot permanently ally ourselves with either party. Neither one of them is ever going to stay in power for, you know, permanently. I learned that from an African American member of Congress who told me the Democrats keep ignoring them because they know they have the African American vote, so they don't have to give them anything. We need to re-engage with the Republican Party. We need to help them to remember that we have a lot of conservative values within our community, and we need to help them to remember they're not going to win those votes back by allowing their candidates to bash on us. With the Democratic Party, they've been much better in going toward our issues, but they tend to do it in a sense, and I'm definitely generalizing a bit here, but they tend to do it in a sense that we really want you guys to be with us as long as you sort of stand at that end of the stage.
Right.
And we need to not accept that. I think sometimes we're so desperate to go, you know what, we're okay, we're loyal Americans, that we accept being at the far end of the stage, the back of the bus, whatever it happens to be. We have to come forward, we have to say, these are our issues, which one of you is going to deliver on our concerns? And when somebody starts to do that, our votes, our money needs to go that way.
All right, let's keep going here.
Hi, I'm enjoying your discourse, and I applaud you for it. My name's Malachi Daniels. I'm a writer. I wrote a piece a few years ago called Welcome to the Fatherland, and I wrote it after an experience at Atlanta International Airport. And I was on my way to New York, and I stepped into the terminal, and I saw rows and rows of American flags, and this is, of course, after 9/11. And then I was pulled out of line. I was pulled out of line because my given name is very Islamic. And I was pulled over to a table by myself where I had to go through my bags. And I said, okay, well, you know, I stepped back for a second and I laughed. I mean, I grew up with the NYPD, so this is really not that odd to me. So I stepped back and I looked at the terminal and I looked around and I looked at all the soldiers and I said, I'm in Berlin. And I wrote about it. And one thing I want to say is I'm very ashamed of the African American Muslim community because we've been very quiet. First, I see liberalism as Western chauvinism, and I don't cater to it. And I don't believe Muslims have to cater to it, and I don't believe anyone should have to cater to it. what you're talking about on this stage and what people have been dealing with in this country forever. You've been dealing with white supremacy and you've been dealing with imperialism. And you have to call it that. We all have to call it that. And, you know, Europeans are suffering under imperialism and they have historically, and this is no different. To speak about this as if this is some new time or this is some new monster, it's not. It's the same monster we've all been dealing with. And humanity has to confront it. Because we all been suffering, we don't confront it. It's the same beast. Thank you.
I mean, I would just say that's entirely true, and that's kind of when we talk about and beyond, right? This is not new. Scapegoating of groups, political exclusion. This has been going on for a long time. We kind of rotate who we go after, right? You know, historically, you're talking about tight budgets. It's immigrants usually in this country that get targeted. You know, we had Japanese Americans post World War II. We had African Americans for more or less the entire existence of the United States. I mean, it's not distinctly different. It was women prior to, you know, well, still today, I guess. I suppose we have something to do with that, unfortunately, today. But it's a continual thing that's been going on for a long point in time, and I think that's absolutely correct. And that's also part of the reason why I think people need to become particularly involved in this issue and these issues and build sort of coalitions across different types of groups, reach out across. So it shouldn't be just, this is not just a Muslim issue. This is a much larger issue. It's an American issue. And basically understand that, you know what, there might come a time where it won't be Muslims, but there'll be somebody else. There almost always is. And the most important thing is for us to build institutions and coalitions and partnerships and friendships and alliances with groups to basically stand together in these situations and circumstances when it's, you know, group X. And there's always going to be a group X. That's usually, it's just what happens. So I think that that's a fundamental reason why I think people need to take this very seriously and just become a lot more involved at the grassroots level and across all levels, artistically and policy-wise, I mean, everything. And I think it's fundamentally vital for us to recognize that and to do just that.
Hey, guys, I'm going to try to take a few questions at a time because we got a lot of people out here. So we'll start right here.
Corey, specific question for you. I want to know specifically, what is CARE doing strategically every day on the ground to counter anti-Islamism? For example, the Jewish American community organizations have call trees to counter anti-Jewish sentiments in the media. And I've always been a proponent of call trees. Do you have that strategy? Just want to specifically hear about your strategies on the ground. Have you heard about Muslims for Loyalty? I'm outraged over getting this recently and wanted to hear your comments about it.
Yeah.
Can we see one of those?
It's an oath of loyalty.
They held a press conference earlier this week. Thanks to announce themselves.
I wanted to make a comment as a hijabi in the crowd since no one has spoken. I work as a lawyer, and one of the pro bono works that I do is with the World Food Program, but for United Nations. And when the Pakistani flood relief efforts happened, I just like the fact that all the groups from all different religions came together, and those are some things that should be focused on, so people do know that people do come together. And at the same time, the question I have for the panel is that the media likes sensational stories, and telling them Islam is not a problem is not sensational. So what is it that we can do that actually makes a difference? Because they just like portraying all the stories that are going on there. You know, we have to make some sort of effort to show that that's actually important for them to know that Islam is not the problem.
A friend of mine, when he heard about, when September 11th happened, he said that not only was the planes hijacked, but, Islam was hijacked. And I just want to know, how do you separate, acts of terrorism that have to do with, disenfranchised groups and, the things that they're experiencing? And they're just, a lot of the acts of terrorism have to do with, a lot of things behind Islam, not even have anything to do with Islam itself, but, all kinds of people who are struggling to have a voice. And so how do you separate that from Islam so people can know the truth about the terrorist acts, what they're really about, what they're really saying?
The last one is precisely what I was talking about with this